Republican former Secretary of State Colin Powell announced that he'll be supporting Joe Biden in the presidential election. Guess who'll likely be joining him? A cure for coronavirus seems to have been found, and it's called rioting and looting. Plus, efforts move forward in Minneapolis to defund the entire police department. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. We're going to start with Colin Powell and some other Republicans on some major news because apparently CNN and the New York Times think it's major news when never Trumpers confirm that they're never Trumpers. Colin Powell came out. He was brought on CNN saying that he wasn't going to support President Trump. Jake Tapper over at CNN basically gave Colin Powell an open mic, an open floor to bash the president. And then Powell said this.
I couldn't vote for him in '96, and I certainly cannot in any way support President Trump this year.
So Colin Powell won't be supporting President Trump. Wow, breaking news. New York Times and CNN felt compelled yesterday to make this one of their central stories, and it's just non-news. But Jake Tapper, he asked, what does this imply for the 2020 election?
Based on the fact that you approved Joe Biden when Senator Obama picked him to be his running mate in 2008, I assume you're going to be voting for Joe Biden?
So how do you think Colin Powell responded to that one? Did he say yes? Well, basically, he said, hell yes. Here's his response.
I'm very close to Joe Biden on a social matter and on a political matter. I've worked with him for 35, 40 years, and he is now the candidate, and I will be voting for him.
Just how lame. So that was Colin Powell on Sunday. But also on Sunday, the New York Times put a piece together. They referenced Colin Powell and his endorsement of Joe Biden, and then they went into some of the other candidates that are not looking to support President Trump. And here's a report from the New York Times. It is one thing in 2016 for top Republicans to take a stand against Donald J. Trump for president. He wasn't likely to win anyway, the thinking went, and there was no ongoing conservative governing agenda that would be endangered. The 2020 campaign is different. Opposing the sitting president of your own party means putting policy priorities at risk. In this case, appointing conservative judges, sustaining business-friendly regulations, and cutting taxes, as well as incurring the volcanic wrath of Mr. Trump. The volcanic wrath of Mr. Trump. I love that one. It's just they can't help themselves but bash the president. But here's one thing the New York Times does have right. It is different in 2020. We have a sitting Republican president, okay? That brings with it a ton of power. And these guys are opposing that. If they support Joe Biden, they are not going to get conservative judges. We are not going to get tax cuts. We are not going to get those regulations that help the economy just boom. You think Joe Biden is going to be tough on illegal immigration? So it's not just a personal thing. Personally, I don't like Donald J. Trump. This is the policies that the president can put forward. And when Colin Powell and others say they are not supporting President Trump, that Colin Powell is going to vote for Joe Biden, that's what he's saying. He's saying that the Republican agenda, the conservative agenda, does not matter. Conservative judges don't matter. Tax cuts don't matter. This is personal. I'm voting for Joe Biden. And here's more from the New York Times. Former President George W. Bush won't support the re-election of Mr. Trump, and Jeb Bush isn't sure how he'll vote, say people familiar with their thinking. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah won't back Mr. Trump and is deliberating whether again to write in his wife Ann or cast another ballot this November. Cindy McCain, the widow of Senator John McCain, is almost certain to support Mr. Biden, but is unsure how public to be about it because one of her sons is eyeing a run for office. So here's something interesting. The Times goes on in that report and says, by the way, none of those folks we mentioned supported Donald Trump in 2016. So how is this news? How is this news if you say, hey, these people that were never Trumpers are still never Trumpers? It's just lame. It's just timing of this to go on side the coronavirus and these riots and just bash President Trump, because this isn't news. When you have Colin Powell, when you have George W. Bush, you have Mitt Romney saying, I'm not going to vote for President Trump, Jeez, just give me a break. But here's the thing. I want to know what you think. What is the thinking that is going on with people like Colin Powell, Mitt Romney, George W. Bush? Who are they going to vote for? Are they going to vote for Joe Biden? Are they going to come out and put our entire Republican agenda at risk by being vocal about it? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really want to know. So next, we're going to move on to coronavirus. But first, I've got to mention this. I mentioned it Friday, but guess what? On Friday afternoon, we hit our latest goal. We hit 70,000 subscribers. And that is all because of you. I appreciate the support. We're moving. We're growing. So please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that bell. So we're making our push for 100K by Election Day. We can do it with your help. All right, so now we're going to talk about coronavirus. Remember that? Remember coronavirus? The lockdowns? The reason that 40 million people lost their jobs? That governments came out and said, you're non-essential. You have to close your business. You can't go to work. Remember that? Churches closing, businesses closing, restaurants closing. All of that stuff, there appears to be a cure. And it's called rioting and looting. And it's so important, so significant that health officials, healthcare advocates in Washington state have come out and endorsed the practice. And here's a report from CNN. A group of health and medical colleagues has penned an open letter to express their concern that protests around the United States could be shut down under the guise of coronavirus health concerns. The letter, which went on to draw more than 1,200 signatures, focuses on techniques to reduce harm to people protesting racial injustice. We created the letter in response to emerging narratives that seem to malign demonstrations as risky for the public health because of COVID-19, according to the letter writers, many of whom are part of the University of Washington's Division of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. What is that? This letter talks about emerging narratives that try to malign the health impact of these widespread protests that lead to rioting and looting. The whole idea of shutting down mass gatherings was not an emerging narrative. That was the ideas, that was the recommendations from healthcare experts. Social distancing, lockdown, wear masks, don't gather together in public. Remember that? The mayor of Chicago was saying if you went out running, jogging by yourself, we'll throw you in jail, we'll fine you because we can't go out at all. Now they're saying that, oh, if you bring that up because of riots, you're somehow getting involved in a narrative to bring down these protesters, and it's not really based on health, when the whole idea of not gathering was based on health, according to the healthcare experts. Here's more. Instead, we want to present a narrative that prioritizes opposition to racism as vital to the public health, including the epidemic response. We believe that the way forward is not to suppress protests in the name of public health, but to respond to protesters' demands in the name of public health, thereby addressing multiple public health crises. So, opposition to racism is now vital to the public health. Don't worry about quarantine. Don't worry about spreading coronavirus. Opposition to racism itself is vital to public health. It's absolutely insane what they're saying. And then they go into this nonsensical science that basically says that coronavirus can tell the difference between one mass gathering and another. One, coronavirus will infect people. The other, it's okay, because the public health concerns of protesting racial injustice are so vital, and apparently coronavirus knows the difference. It won't attack you. But if you want to gather in another way for another cause, that's bad. You can't do it. Here's more. However, as public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. We support them as vital to the national public health and to the threatened health specifically of Black people in the United States. We can show that support by facilitating safest protesting practices without detracting from demonstrators' ability to gather and demand change. This should not be confused with permissive stance on all gatherings, particularly protests against stay-at-home orders. It's absolutely insane. Look at this video. Look at this crowd. That is the largest gathering I've seen since coronavirus lockdowns. The very thing we were told not to do, they're doing it, and it's actually being endorsed by these health advocates, whatever that means. And look at this. Look how twisted this is. Here's a report from last week from KRON Channel 4 in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland area, this county, talking about reopening. And look at the priorities.
Also, the business offices here in Contra Costa County are going to be allowed to reopen. Outdoor museums as well. Now, libraries can reopen, but that's for curbside pickup services only.
So libraries are allowed to open, but only curbside. So that means you can't go in and check out a book. But if you have one, you can throw it at a police officer. Better yet, you can go burn down a library, because that's all well and good. Here's more from the report.
Also, that new order permits protests of up to 100 people that are in alignment with state guidelines.
Okay, so you can protest in groups of 100 people. But in the news report that accompanied that video, it said that other social gatherings are limited to 12 people. So, rioting, 100. Other social gatherings, 12. What about getting together to pray?
Also, the next step is religious services will be able to resume June 15th out here in the county, but those are going to be with some restrictions.
This is just absolutely nuts. 100 people can get together to protest, leading to riots and looting, but no one can get together to pray. No one can go to church yet 100 people can get together to protest. It makes no sense. Let me know what you think in the comments. Where is this going to lead? I mean, what is the end game for the left here when they promote stuff like this? When they put priorities where you can't go to church, but you can go out and protest racial injustice or protest anything basically that's sanctioned by the left. It's just absolutely outrageous. So next, folks, we want to talk about the Minneapolis Police Department, because this leads to this. It's a great follow-up on left-wing anarchy. But first, I've got to tell you about my friends over at World Fair. Folks, if you have a picture of your house or any architectural building, World Fair can turn that into a handmade work of art. It is just awesome. I have these in my home for every home I've lived in, and people love it. They make great gifts. You have someone graduating from college, you can do a building, an iconic building of your alma mater, or a great gift for someone you know that's moving into a new home. Just go to the link in the description and use Bobby13 for 10% off. All right, next we're going to talk about the Minneapolis Police Department, because City Council now says that they have a veto-proof majority to defund the police department. There's riots, there's looting, there's anarchy going on. They want to get rid of the police department altogether. And here's the report. City Council President Lisa Bender, City Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins, and council members reportedly made the announcement Sunday afternoon at a rally saying they plan to dismantle the police department. The money for the police would instead go toward community-based public safety model, according to the local TV station KSTP. So, like I mentioned, the city council said they have a veto-proof majority. So if the mayor comes out, says we don't want to dismantle this, I'm going to fund it, they will veto that. They put a statement out yesterday, and here are the points from that statement. Number one, decades of police reform efforts have proved that the Minneapolis Police Department cannot be reformed and will never be accountable for its actions. Number two, we are here today to begin the process of ending the Minneapolis Police Department and creating a new transformative model for cultivating safety in Minneapolis. Wow, that's left-wing stuff. We recognize, number three, we recognize that we don't have all the answers about what a police-free future looks like, but our community does. We're committing to engaging with every willing community member in the city of Minneapolis over the next year to identify what safety looks like for you. As if safety is, like you have to have a discussion on what safety is, and it's apparently different for different people. Number four, we'll be taking intermediate steps toward ending the MPD through the budget process and other policy and budget decisions over the coming weeks and months. Folks, geez, so that's Minneapolis, okay? But it's spreading around, and we've seen it in other cities. Mayor de Blasio over in New York City, he's doing the same thing. He's now supporting efforts to cut back the budget, not totally defund it, but cut back the budget on police. This is what the left wants, anarchy. They take a situation, the death of a person, tragically, didn't need to happen, and they spin it as a lie that is not supported by any statistics out there at all. Yet everybody jumps on board. We have rioting and looting that are going unchecked for ultimate anarchy. And now the next push is to defund entire police departments and have the community determine what safety is. Good luck with that. So finally, I just want to wrap up with a little bit of racing news. So IndyCar opened their season this weekend. They ran at Texas Motor Speedway to an empty facility. No fans at all. They were doing major social distancing. It was so lame to watch. You had interviews going on where the people were 6 feet apart and had masks on. You had to have the announcer with one microphone and a boom microphone pointed at the other person. And what a contrast compared to what I just showed you before with the video of just thousands and thousands gathered together. But it's all the optics. We want to look like we're practicing social distancing at an empty stadium, but rioting and looting, protesting, that's okay. But one racetrack had a great idea. They discovered a way to have both a race and fans, and it was awesome. Here's the story. A North Carolina speedway drew a crowd of more than 2,000 spectators in defiance of the state's coronavirus restrictions after declaring the race a protest. The governor's office had warned Ace Speedway in Milan earlier this week that a crowd of more than 25 would violate the state's Phase 2 coronavirus restrictions. But news outlets report that more than 2,000 attended a race Saturday night. A sign from management outside the speedway said, "This event is held in peaceful protest of injustice and inequality everywhere." Nice. That's awesome. So, want to get people together? Call it a protest. Because like those healthcare officials said, coronavirus knows. If you went there to watch a race, can't do it. You're going to get coronavirus. If you go there to protest and happen to watch a race, hey, that's got to be all good. So, folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching, and before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified, and here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-Minute News Hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.